Welcome to the University Network TV, where we scan the globe to give students, their families, and educators the very best tips for student success. I'm your host today, Dr. Crystal Rose. Welcome to our featured series exploring the college application essays, and today we'll discuss the 7 questions to ask yourself before you write about your mission trip for your college application. In other words, we'll be discussing just how to incorporate international service opportunities in your college application. Here to discuss this with us is our guest, Kimberly Hayley-Coleman, the founder and executive director of Globe Aware. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Rose.
Today, we're interested in exploring questions you need to ask yourself before you write about your missions trip or your international volunteer trip. We're using the ABCs as a mnemonic device to walk us through. Now we'll look at E for engagement, engagement over experience. Now, how can this question help students better shape their college essay process about the topic, Professor Hayley-Coleman?
This is such a good one because what is it about any sort of service abroad experience that encouraged your further growth and passion and pursuits? When people are reading essays, they are often doing this after you've been pre-screened. They've already seen standardized test scores if they've been submitted, and they've already seen your grades. So you're lucky if you're at the point where they're actually reading your essay. So if you've already got them there, they feel like you've at least met some minimum of their criteria in terms of the objective numbers, right? So here, it's the engagement portion where you're really wanting to distinguish yourself in terms of showing how, hey, even if you have the same scores as someone else and the same grades as someone else, how have you engaged with your world in a way that makes you an interesting person for that university? Remember, it's not about where you were, it's about collaboration and teamwork that took place and how that affected change in you. It is not about the privilege of traveling, this discussion of how privileged you are to be able to go abroad. They know that. And all universities have travel abroad programs, fortunately. So they're not seeing that as a unique statement. That's really superfluous. You don't need to point that out. It's talking about your engagement, the collaboration, teamwork, how any sort of change took place. And there are lots of ways you can point this out. When you think about your interactions that you actually had on site, and when you're doing your thought process at the beginning on whether or not you even want to include service abroad within your essays, you're thinking about what meaningful engagement did you have? And it's that engagement. It's the person to person that usually affects change. But, it could be, as I mentioned, it could be if you're working in some sort of wildlife setting or research setting, whether it's with animals or the environment, that's an engagement too. So that specific contact with a community, a culture, environment, that engagement, what did it do for you? We do need to incorporate that and include it. So do keep in mind the engagement piece.
Really like what you said, because colleges want to see that students have a self-originating passion, and students will know how to put in the time, the effort, the research, and experiences to support their current and future endeavors. And this will really show universities that a student will be able to fit within a department and complete tasks needed for a major and to be successful within the college environment. This approach looks better on an application than a bunch of just random activities that are not streamlined in a way or connected to your interests or proposed field of study. Instead of appearing multi-talented, students then can really come off feeling scattered. It may really look like you're not really showing them that you have enough focus or maturity to pursue a specific career or industry. So this is something that you'll want to keep in mind as well. We have now F for focus. What question comes to mind regarding the focus of an essay on this topic?
Right. This is a good question because I think up at the beginning, if you decided, hey, I do think my service abroad experience was really meaningful and really impactful, so that's what I'm going to write about. Well, you need to actually consider in your focus, is it really going to be just about the trip. And if you're thinking of it that way, like I'm going to write about my trip, then it hasn't been woven enough into a larger picture of who you are. So yes, those components are great and important to include a service abroad experience. But if the focus is the trip, then it's probably not enough about you. It's not enough just to describe the trip and the places you went and what was accomplished. So for example, if you're crafting the narrative about your progression to becoming a lifelong advocate for women's rights, and you are on a service program in Cusco, and you're working with a women's community gardens initiative, and you've now learned firsthand and seen evidence of some of the ailments and suffering that are happening as a result of a community that may not have ready access to good nutrition. And so that has helped inform your decision and passion about helping women and nutrition or empowerment. Then the service abroad experience makes sense within that focus as a part of your progression to being a lifelong advocate for women's rights.
Thank you so much for your insight in the college application essay, Professor Hayley-Coleman.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Rose.
And to our audience, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of the University Network's television show featuring Globe Aware, your guide to short-term international travel. To find out more about Globe Aware and Professor Hayley-Coleman, please see the link below. Now, with Professor Coleman's advice, hopefully you'll know the 7 most important questions to ask yourself before incorporating your international service experiences in your college essays. Here's to your success. I'm your host, Dr. Crystal Rose. Until next time on TUN TV.